Today's guest is Carolyn Durrant, and she's no stranger to life's unfolding nature. After decades working in mental health and raising a family, she's now embracing a new chapter, leaving city life behind for the country and diving into human design. Her story includes bold choices, including leaving her first marriage to follow love and a spiritual evolution which spans the past 20 years. She's a mother, stepmother, grandmother, and daughter, and she brings a deeply grounded perspective on change, courage, and the lifelong process of becoming.
Mm.
Thank you for joining us,
Yeah,
Carolyn.
thank you. That was a lovely intro.
We just sit with that for a moment.
Yeah, all right, is that?
Let's just go with a little backstory of how
Yeah.
we met,
Mm.
and then I'm going to hand over to you. So we met at the Human Design Conference just over 12 months ago, and
Mm.
we stayed in contact. You kind of said that you were moving up my way. um, I don't even know how you, because I'm mid North Coast, but I'm not sure how we explain where you live because it's kind of inland a bit more, isn't it?
Yeah,
Farther
yeah,
down,
yeah.
but closer to us than Sydney.
Mm.
And we kept in contact. You're a listener of the podcast, which I'm super grateful for. And then we went to the Human Design No, we met for lunch. That was it. We met for lunch. You came over to
Mm.
our place, and our
Mm.
husbands did most of the talking, which is something that I've
Yes.
observed they do. And we've met again at the Human Design Conference this year.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like this is a really nice opportunity for just you and me to be hanging out together for the hour. So yay for us. No one else.
All right, let's get down to
Let's get into
it.
it. All right. So I did a brief intro. Is there
Mm.
anything else you want to add to that to get us started, or should we just?
I mean, there's lots to add, so it depends kind of which sort of direction we want to go. I'm happy to follow your lead, or I can kind of add a few things in.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to go straight into the first story that
Okay.
your love of
Mm.
your life,
Mm.
um, and how that all unfolded. Because I think that the relevance of this and the connection to your current spiritual journey
Mm. Mm.
is really interesting, and I'm curious about that. So, do you want to take
Yeah.
us there?
Yes. Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm currently married to Neil, and we've been together for almost 20 years. Both of us grew up in the church, very strong Christian tradition, Anglican, and I was very much embroiled in all of that, had, various roles in churches right throughout my life. Neil, much the same. In fact, he decided to go into the ministry and became an Anglican minister in Sydney. So that's an evangelical church, so quite conservative. And he ended up in working as an assistant minister in the church that I was attending. He arrived in 2005, and we'd been going there since sort of 2000, early 2000s. Um, uh, we were both married at the time, so I'd been married 10, 11, 12 years. And that marriage, the decision to marry my first husband was very much a head decision. He was, a great guy. We shared really similar values. We got along well. We did the things that you do when you're a young Christian in the church, and getting married was kind of part of that. Um, but I think that relationship really slowed down, and there wasn't kind of a lot of life in it by the time I met Neil. And he was this young guy who had a lot of enthusiasm for things that I was really interested in. We went into ministry together. We were part of the leadership team for a congregation, and I just really enjoyed being with him. It was fun. It was stimulating. It was I got to do things, new and exciting things, because he had, the energy. We seemed to really kind of connect. And we did some really great things in the church. But over that time, as we did this stuff together, we fell in love. And for me, I mean, there's just no possible way I thought I would ever leave my first husband as a committed Christian. That's just not what you did. And I didn't want to anyway, for all sorts of personal reasons. And the kids, I had 3 kids by then. But yeah, I was falling hopelessly head over heels in love with this man who was just lighting up my life. And I mean, at the time, I don't know if you've ever got to fall in love in that really heady way. It is just such a magnificent time of life. But it's crazy. It's crazy time too. Like you're not so much in your head, you're in these emotions and this joy. And so, we had these grand ideas of continuing ministry together so that we could, still be with each other, and our spouses would come with us, and, all these ideas, which, looking back, I just go, what, what were you thinking? How is this going to work out? But we got to the end of the year 2006, and we'd spent most days together because we worked together in the church. I was working in children's ministry, and he was assistant minister. And it came to the holidays, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to see him every day. And I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but I just knew that I couldn't not see him for 2 weeks. Like it was just the most impossible thing. And so the shit really hit the fan at that point, and it became really real. Became real to my husband, then became real to the church, and that just meant both our lives exploded, because obviously you can't have 2 of the staff at your church. We weren't, I mean, I don't know, were we having an affair? We were very much in love with each other. And yeah, of course, that wasn't going to work out. So, we both lost our jobs. Neil lost his house. We had to negotiate care of kids, and it was just a train wreck of a time. Really hard going, but buoyed by this intense kind of passion for each other, which fortunately lasted quite a while we sort of renegotiated our lives. Yeah, and yeah, there've been ups and downs. It's been quite the roller coaster, but yeah, we're still together, nearly 20 years down the track, and still very much in love with each other. And yeah, it's just a joy to be with him most of the time.
Wow. Anyone navigating any kind of separation when there's children involved, when, partners and other partners and whatnot, it's going to be hard. But you had that added element of your whole community.
Yeah, I was just thinking this morning about my friendship circle, and there's no one from that period of time that I'm still in contact with, apart from one person who wasn't a Christian and who I knew through work, and he's yeah, sort of a loyal friend. It sort of has come and gone, but yeah, it's interesting that none of the friendships, which I think were almost entirely Christians, haven't lasted. And I get it, but it's interesting.
Pretty full on.
It made it hard, I think, particularly for us in those early years, because we didn't have much of a friendship. Like for a few years, it was sort of most obvious on New Year's Eve, because you sort of expect to be invited to something on New Year's Eve, and we never were. But yeah, gradually through work, we developed a new circle of friends, which includes you and your
Yay.
lovely husband now. So yeah.
How did you navigate the whole children thing? Because your kids are now all grown, right? But they are all still within the church.
Mm.
How did that how did that work for you? Was that because what did they live with you? Did they live with your ex-husband
Yeah.
or like and how did you kind of
Yeah. I think
separate
we were
yourself from
really
that?
blessed, if you can say that. I mean, it's kind of weird, but I left the family home and Neil and I rented for a little while and we shared care. So my kids stayed in their home. They
Mhm.
stayed attending the same school. They attended the same church. And I think the church was really protective from them, of them, for them. So, I mean, apart from the fact that their mum had, precipitated this massive change in their lives, in one sense, a lot of the other things in their lives stayed relatively the same. And I think that really helped. It wasn't a big disaster for them. And their dad was, I mean, as angry as he was, understandably, he just really stepped up and continued to look after them and provide for them, and I did too. So we continued to parent in the same way, and we sort of have a very similar way of parenting. So I think, yeah, it was this huge kind of hiccup, but sort of the track kind of, they stayed on the same track, and they've done sort of reasonably well. It's not like, I remember being warned at the time by another minister at the church when it was all kind of going down, and he and his wife had come from broken families, and he was saying, oh, you're going to lose the relationships with your kids, they'll never talk to you again. And I'm like, no, like it doesn't have to be like that. Like, and it won't be like that. And I won't let it be like that. My energy will go into ensuring that the kids are looked after and ensuring that the relationship I have with their dad is a positive one so that we can continue to parent them well.
Mm.
Um,
I think it's kind of interesting to highlight that you didn't leave your previous relationship because you were having a bad time. Like you said, you're kind of going through the paces and
yeah.
doing life, and there wasn't any excitement or joy. But it
Mm,
wasn't like I need to
mm,
get out. There
mm,
wasn't anything bad happening in the
mm,
church experience either that
mm.
made you feel like you need to get away from it.
Yeah.
It was simply because you fell in love and you had
Yeah.
to do something about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think it was interesting. It's very interesting the timings on, I've been seeing an energy healer, and on Friday I had a session where we talked about this, because interestingly, again, the night before, my youngest kid had come for dinner and we talked a little bit about this
Okay.
and the kind of impact on him. And it brought up these feelings of real, I think I was carrying still a lot of shame, that I'd left this good man, and that I'd brought such kind of sadness and anger and what have you into his life. I think as far as he was concerned, we were just going to live out our lives and, be together for forever. And then I just dropped a bomb on that. And I think for a long time, I felt really bad about that. Um, but yeah, in this session on Friday, um, it was a real kind of honoring of um, my right to joy and happiness, and I felt like deserved is a funny thing, but just a claiming of me in my uniqueness and my specialness and what my life can be, and what I want it to be, and kind of owning that. And yeah, it felt afterwards, I was exhausted afterwards, but it felt afterwards like I'd been forgiven finally,
Mm.
like I'd been able to let go of that sense of shame, or having done something really bad, and that that it's okay. And this feels like the life that is meant for me. Not that that wasn't. I mean, I wouldn't have met Neil if all of the things that hadn't happened before hadn't happened. um but yeah, this just feels really right. And
Mm.
it's nice to sort of let go of some of that baggage that you carry, kind of, yeah, unknowingly sometimes, I think, for a
Yeah.
long time.
Well, that's that whole kind of um, the phrase, and it just sounds so like overused, but the layers of the onion, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't realize how much of that stuff that you're still holding on to. Like this is an experience that you had 20 years ago
Mm,
almost,
yeah, yeah.
and yet there's still a processing that's going on.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Do you? So you were talking with your son a couple of days ago. Do you feel like you need some kind of forgiveness or acceptance from him, or do you feel like that's already there with your kids?
Yeah, no, I think they're all, I have a good, great relationship with each of them. And I don't feel, yeah, that there's any kind of hangover from that. What is an issue though is because they're all still Christians, and my middle son is an Anglican minister. He's gone into the
Oh,
ministry.
right.
Um, so there's a real, I think, sadness for them that I've left Christianity behind,
Mm,
because in their worldview, I'm going to hell, and I've rejected something that's really important to them.
mm,
And I think that means that there's a disconnect. So there are certain things that I can't kind of talk with them
mm,
about or share about my own spiritual journey. Although interestingly, my middle child, the Anglican minister, is up for a bit of a conversation about that these days. So that's been nice to explore. Um, but yeah, there's always that kind of, yeah, not so much that I left their dad in a way, but that I left God is
mm.
kind of
Yeah.
the big sticking point.
Right. You've mentioned energy healing, spirituality, and we know that you're into human design, and I want to get into some of those things that you are interested in and how you've kind of how that's evolved from
Mm.
being in the church. Um, oh, what was I going to say? Anyway, let's just go there. I can't remember what I was going to say. Um, yeah, I just find it. I'm really curious about how that started to unfold for you. So you're in a Christian community. You've mentioned from what your
Mm.
family are experiencing that it's a solid
Mm.
belief, and
Mm.
there's not really much option for open-mindedness, let's say. I mean,
No. No.
so when you and Neil got together and you were kind of gone through leaving the church or being
Mm.
rejected from the church,
Mm.
when did you start to explore
Mm.
these new
Yeah.
modalities? When did things start opening up?
Yeah. Well, Neil was ahead of me in that. Like, even though he was a minister, he was really struggling just intellectually, to put together the what he was meant to believe.
Mm,
And so he was kind of on his way out by the time we got together. And I think in some ways probably, was a part of that, because that was the real um, challenge for him, this his whole belief structure was kind of crumbling. Um, and so he was working that through kind of at an intellectual slash philosophical kind of level. Whereas for me, I think my Christianity was much more based in the community.
Mm.
And so in being part of a community that loved and supported each other, and then we had to leave the church. We could have stayed, but it only on the condition that we repented, and we weren't prepared to repent because that meant changing our behavior. And so we attended a few different churches afterwards together, but once people kind of knew the situation, it was very hard again to sort of become accepted as part of the community. And so gradually we stopped attending church. And I found that as that kind of slipped away and I wasn't getting the weekly or twice weekly kind of inputs around Christianity, that the whole thing just kind of loosened until um, it just doesn't make the sense that it used to anymore. And the things that didn't make sense before, which you kind of swept under the carpet or kind of ascribed to, the mystery of God, or, they kind of bubble to the surface. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I do think same-sex marriage is a valid kind of
Thing.
and and the whole sort of relationships between men and women, and why is it, particularly in Sydney evangelical churches, why isn't it that women have more of a leadership role? Why wasn't I particularly, because I was given various leadership roles, but if I had been male, I think my trajectory in the church would have been quite different, that there is this, I felt very clear difference in the treatment of men and women in the church. And so you just go, no, actually this, and then more and more of it, you just explore and going, actually, no, that doesn't make sense. Like really, like hell and this good and loving God, and most of the world's population is going to end up forever in this, fire and brimstone. It's like, it just becomes easier and easy to let it go until it's gone. Um, and then for our first kind of 10, 15 years together, Neil was very much sort of in an atheistic,
Okay.
materialist uh, frame of mind. He studied nature and did a PhD in nature. So that kind of was his path. And that never sat entirely well for me. I did have a sense that there was something other, something beyond. We didn't really do much about it until we started exploring Tantra, actually. And Neil, for his own reasons, was very interested in Tantra. And we ended up going to a festival nearly 2 years ago, which was very sort of like Byron Bay, Sunshine Coast, kind of hippie, uh, spiritual, um, and but with this kind of philosophical teaching of Tantra kind of underpinning it, sort of. Um, And that was a real doorway for Neil to start exploring actually what was the philosophical underpinnings of Tantra, which are just, incredible when you go into it, and just made a whole lot of sense for him. And yeah, opened the door for us to really kind of explore this new spirituality. And yeah, I mean, I'd been meditating up till then, but I think that was really kind of, yeah, a significant door that we stepped through, and it's really kind of informed how we do, how we, our spiritual lives.
Mm.
It's lovely to sort of come back to that.
Mm. I haven't. I have no sense of Tantra or what that means. Do you want to go there or not?
Yeah, no.
I've got two girls who I train who just did a Tantra, some kind of Tantra course, but other than
Yeah,
that, I don't think they
yeah.
really knew what it was when they were getting into it. But
Well, no, and I think a lot. I mean, I remember we went after that festival. We went to an introduction to Tantra workshop and came away going, so what is it like? You eat raspberries and I think so I think for most people Tantra is often associated with sex, with kind of
mm,
tantric sex, um, which is very much a part of why we started to explore it. But that's kind of just in some ways the icing on the cake. And the Tantra stems from a philosophical tradition that was really prominent over a few hundred years back in like 800 to 1100 in the Kashmir Valley, where there was this state-sponsored kind of study of consciousness, and people were paid to study the world, the universe, consciousness, awareness, energy, and they did, and they wrote about it. And there's just these amazing texts which explain how the world works, and which interestingly align very well to a lot of this quantum kind of stuff
mm,
that we're, engaging with these days. Um, so yeah, really rich theological and philosophical kind of tradition, very complex. And can't remember what the question was now.
what is Tantra,
Oh,
basically? And you've
so
answered it
yeah,
in a yeah. I'm sure
yeah.
it's a bit like so many traditions, right? And like you people study these things for years
Oh,
and
it's
years
just
and years.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I guess for me, it's about this openness to the universe as
Mm,
kind of, they talk about, energy and consciousness or awareness and action, and just that there is this sort of sense of all being one on the one hand, but all of us also being very unique
mm,
concentration of a particular energy. And you have to kind of hold those two things in tension, and not just us, but everything. So, hence the eating the raspberry thing, that you can derive, you don't have to kind of go into this huge sort of mystical experience to have a spiritual experience. You can have a spiritual experience by just focusing on what it is to eat a raspberry, and which is then the kind of sex bit, because of course if you're applying that sort of focus and
mm.
awareness to sexual activity, then that kind of can really amp up the experience, which I think a lot of people have found who have gone into tantra for those reasons.
Right. Wow.
Mm.
That's not the only thing that you're interested in, though, and I think that that's one of the things that um, I'm really curious about. And as I said before, with the religion, it's like one way of thinking, one the rules, the guidelines are there. You follow
Mm.
them. You don't step outside of them. You don't question them. And you
Mm.
could do the same with tantra, right?
Yep.
You could get completely yeah.
Mm.
Jesus, my words are just.
Yeah.
I told
Yeah, you're
you,
talking
it's
from
that moon.
experience.
I've got that moon in Cancer like thing going on at the moment, where I'm like just floating.
Yeah, yeah. Happy to float.
Anyway, you're actually
Yep.
interested in a whole bunch of different things.
Mm.
Tarot,
Mm.
human design.
Mhm.
You've talked about energy healing, and
Mm.
yeah, I feel like you mentioned when we met when you came for lunch, something where this woman was doing some kind of weird thing with your
Oh yeah,
hand or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're experimenting with a whole bunch of different things.
Mm.
Yeah, where should we go from there? Tarot. How did you come across tarot?
How did I come across tarot? I mean, it's always been around, but I think I came to it because friends of mine had gone to see a tarot reader,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And because, like I'm up for an experience, then it
Mm.
was like, okay, well, let's see what she has to say. So I booked in and saw her too. I mean, as it turns out, a couple of the things that she predicted for
Mm.
those friends of mine haven't kind of, but what I do now. Well, actually, when I saw her, one of the really nice things was that what she saw for me and for us was something very akin to what we would like for our lives together. So that was interesting, sort of creating a new kind of community around spiritual practices and our new home being a base for that, which, very much is set up for. So, yeah, so you take it kind of with a pinch of salt, I guess. And now
Mm.
most mornings after I meditate, I draw a tarot card, and more often than not, it's it's something to contemplate.
Mm.
Um, they're often about change, about sort of leaving things behind and moving into a new space, or um, yeah, there's some sort of resonance there. And sometimes it's like uncannily spot on. Um, so that's fun too. Just as, I don't hang too much on it,
Mm.
but, other people do, and that's their vibe and jibe, or, and
Yeah.
that's what works for them. So good on them.
I haven't, you've kind of inspired me because I've had a pack of tarot cards since I was in my 20s, and I used to
Mm.
read for people a little bit, but I always
Oh,
said
no.
the, but I needed a book. Like I'm not very
Oh.
adept at kind of remembering what all of the cards mean and stuff. But
Mm.
it was
Mm.
often quite relevant. But something I always said was the future part of it
Mm.
is kind of like where your energy is right now while you're having the reading. This is a possible
Mm.
outcome,
Mm.
but it doesn't
Yeah,
have to be the outcome.
yeah,
And how you're feeling and what changes in your life can
yeah,
make a difference to that. But
yeah.
this is what could happen if you continue along this path,
I
sort of
think
thing.
that's so true. Yeah, like I've had that thought recently myself, just around, yeah, what energy
Mm.
you bring to something and how, it could play out this way, but it won't necessarily, you know.
Mm. Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
Okay, a little bit about human design. So we've met at the Human Design Conference, and how long have you been into it?
I first sort of was introduced to it by my sister 4 or 5 years ago,
Okay.
actually, and but I didn't really pick it up and run with it at that time. I kind of did a few bits and pieces, and then I was distracted and got onto other. I mean, it's so complex. I think it was
Mm.
probably overwhelming and too much to get my head around at the time. And then beginning of last year, I think I re-engaged with it, and must have been just before the conference last year. And I started the course that I did in April last year, which was too much too soon in retrospect, because it is so, I mean,
Mm.
there's just so much content to it. Um, so yeah, I'd say kind of I would start my journey in human design probably March last year.
Mm.
So
So
yeah,
you're
so
pretty
pretty early
fresh.
on.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm in a membership, with Kim
Mm.
Gould, and a lot of the members in there, when we have, there's like a often a weekly catch up, and there's a particular topic or gate or whatever. Some of the girls in there have been using human design for over 10 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
I feel like, yeah, there is so much, so much to take in. And I look at my chart and I feel my chart and I know that's me,
Yeah.
but it still feels so early on. And exactly as you
Mm,
said, it can feel quite overwhelming to
mm,
actually embody it. It's like
mm,
the beginning is just sort of recognizing the energies.
mm.
You're a we've got very different charts. I've got a chart that's got like lots of color, and yours has got not very much color.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did that feel for you when you first saw your chart? Because you're a
Yeah.
projector, aren't you?
Yeah.
Do you have your throat defined?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got
Throat
my
and
asthma and throat.
okay, yeah.
So no inner authority. I mean, I think when I first saw it, I was a bit disappointed.
Well, I think that we all feel like that, especially like when you read like certain words, like well, for me, control. I'm like, oh
All right.
God, I have something a bit more exciting than that.
Yeah. Well, my Sun Gate 62 is details.
Oh, yes, I've got that one as well. It's like, oh, and I've got all these ones about taking it slow, one step at a time. I'm like, oh, I'm an Aries, for God's sake. I don't want to do one step at a time. Oh.
Yeah. I think it's made more sense over time. I mean, as
Mm,
these things do, as you sit with them. Um, uh, yeah, and so that's been nice. I mean, I think like so I'm open completely
mm,
below the throat, um, which has made sense of my kind of like tendency to sort of sit back in the background and not kind of uh, take a hard position. I've been in management and leadership positions. I don't know. It's just really interesting, all the different layers and how they kind of connect, isn't it? Because
mm,
I'm a single definition, I'm a 1-3, so very much independent, like to be on my own. But I've got a kitchens environment. So I do well when I'm in a context where there's lots of things going on. And that was my last job. I've managed a child and adolescent mental health team. So I got to sit in my office, not all the time, but often enough. I could withdraw and, get things done. But I loved being kind of, having all these wonderful things happen around me and being part of kind of making that happen and supporting that process. And yeah, I can see why that job worked really well. And that was an invitation, that job. Um, so yeah, you just sort of look back and go, oh yeah, that
mm.
that fits.
And that without having any energy, um, for people who are listening who don't know very much about human design, you'll just have to do a little bit of
Yes,
digging
sorry.
around to find that
Go
out.
read my Substack.
Read Carolyn's Substack exactly, because she's giving us an intro to it. Um, when you're in those kind of team environments,
Mm.
does it feel quite positive to be able to pick up on other people's energy and run with it and use that
Oh,
energy?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can think of particular relationships I had with staff where the energy just worked
Mm,
really well. And I mean, working alongside a projector, a generator, who's got that sacral energy, or a manifesting generator, it's just a joy. Um, yeah, and it just feels like you can do some really good work
mm,
together. Um, so yeah, that was really special, and there were a couple of people particularly where I really enjoyed that relationship, and and they really appreciated in return. Like when I left that job, that's when people communicate kind of how much they appreciate. I mean, not that I didn't get that at all, but it's the things that were written in the farewell card and
mm,
so forth. I mean, you just realize how much people do appreciate what you have to offer. And yeah, that's special.
mm.
Mm.
And conversely, when you're with Can you pick up on the wrong kind of energy for you? And does it make you feel quite different?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I left that job primarily because someone came in above me who was
Mm,
very much the wrong energy,
mm,
and I just felt shut down. I could not do the things that I was good at doing.
mm,
And yeah, it's awful when that happens. And I think that happens a lot in organizations where you have these kind of periods where you get the right group of people
mm,
together and it works really well. And then, that dynamic changes. Somebody leaves, somebody else comes in, and it's just so yeah, it's interesting.
mm. With your human design type as a projector, when you first saw your chart and you discovered that rest is really important,
Mm,
how was I know for a lot of people that is like such a relief for them because
mm,
they feel quite misunderstood. How unaligned were you, and
mm.
how aligned are you with that particular part of your chart now?
Yeah. I think the rest thing is interesting. I think I've always taken time out in some way or other. And there are things that energize me, like create, like, my gate three, creating order out of chaos. I mean, I just, I would, doesn't take much to get me energized to do that if I have the opportunity. And I've also got, I think it's gate 42, but something about finishing things. Like I love to finish
Mm,
things. I love to make my environment beautiful. So those sorts of things, it's very easy for me to have energy for. And then I've just been in a position where I've been able to rest. I mean, even at work, when I was working full time, I would almost always go out for a walk at lunchtime and get out of, I mean, I didn't know it at the time that that's what I was doing, but I would get out of everybody's aura and
mm,
I'd find somewhere. I was usually able to find, at one stage, I worked next to a big park, Parramatta Park. So I'd just walk through the park for an hour. And then my last job, I walked down to Nepean River and, just had that kind of, so it wasn't physical rest as such, but yeah, it was kind of that sort of down regulating, I guess, sort of energy. And then Neil's a projector too, so we 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 honor rest.
yeah,
I mean, he's got three motors, so
yeah,
and
he's definitely got some energy about
yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He just doesn't have the sacral, but he's got everything
Mm,
else. Um, so yeah, when he's on, he's on. But he'll also, not crash, but he needs his rest too. And so evenings and Sunday afternoons are very much
yeah,
sacrosanct.
yeah.
Mm,
We've talked about a lot about the change of your life and that the impact of that big moment 20 years
mm,
ago. You've also
mm,
there's a change that's happened in the last 12 or so months with you moving
mm.
home. Um, how is that? How does that feel for you
Yeah,
in as part of your like I don't know life evolution, the journey that
yeah,
you're on?
yeah, yeah. It's felt uh like we very, I mean, 18 months ago, we were both kind of ready for something new, but there was nothing kind of concrete. And then it slowly just went, okay, here we go. And we started this ride, or it's like we kind of got onto a canoe, in a river, and just like,
Whoa!
and we were just like, okay, here we go. And my youngest son moved up to the Tablelands, and we got to visit and loved it, and it just felt really, really right. And Neil looked for a job and, found a job against, like, found a job, didn't get that job, was offered another job, invited into another job as a projector. So,
Mm,
and it all just fell into place. came up here to look for a house. We had one weekend to buy the house, just in terms of timing and Neil starting his new job. There were a couple that we booked in to see, didn't like them, but there was this other house that hadn't come on the market yet, but we would like to see it. We went and saw it. It was just amazing. And then it just feels like we've been given kind of all these things to just help us settle in, and including, some really rich friendships. And so, yeah, we really feel like we're in this flow, and it's yeah, it's exciting to see what will happen with that. And I think human design will be a part of that for me, and Neil's philosophy will be a part. And we're meeting people who are like-minded and are interested in hearing about and exploring these sorts of things. And we're going to be putting on this day of workshops.
Yep.
So yeah, things are definitely, it feels like, aligned. We're in the flow. Yeah, the universe is shaping.
It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because life is a constant, but we often kind of get caught in or we're just like in our lives doing our thing, and there's those shifts. But I think that you're we're both in midlife, but you're a few years ahead, and you started with your parenting journey a little bit earlier than me, and so we're kind of in different points, but I don't know where I'm going with this. We're so in the moment a lot of the time that we forget that actually it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And even in midlife, things change. And you were ready for a next step. Can you talk us a little bit about another part of this time of life, which is aging parents and being a grandparent, and how that shapes things?
That was, those relationships, you kind of feel a little frustrating in that your kids grow up, become independent, get married, and you're kind of free. And then your parents are sort of moving into that age where they're becoming more dependent. And so your responsibilities kind of move from, one generation below to the generation above. And, I think we're talking about that more these days, and the demands of that. And yeah, before the move, I felt quite stuck in that because my mum had moved quite close to where I lived at the time. And, I was in a position to do a lot of helping. And it's a struggle to know kind of how much to do that, and on what basis is you kind of decide how much of your life energy to give to that. And I think it's different, the contexts and the history of those relationships are just so different. But I think it's important to make that decision for yourself with kind of a clear eye, and not begrudgingly, not because society tells you that this is the way to behave or this is what you should do. I think there's a real freedom in doing that with generosity. And when I told my mum that we were moving, she was quite devastated, because she really relied on me quite a bit. But, we just knew that this was the right move for me to make, or for us to make. So I'll go down to Sydney, where she is still, each month, to see her. And then in the meantime, we're in contact, but other members of the family have stepped up, and so she's now got this, beautiful new relationship with, her, one of her grandsons, or a couple of her grandsons, and there's other people rallying around, and so it felt like a kind of contraction, sort of something fearful for mum, but actually it's opened up other opportunities. And I think, we've got to give space to that. I think by honoring yourself, assuming that, and that's a whole complicated thing too, but, if you're living well,
Mm.
and aligned with who you are and know who you are and coming from a place of love and generosity and joy and so forth, then I don't know, to think I would like to believe that things work out, even when, you do make those hard decisions.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's that real delicate balance, isn't it, between
Mm.
doing things for yourself to give yourself fulfillment and
Mm.
like feeling uh, obligation to be there for others.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a
I think you want to be
challenge.
able to do for others out of the overflow
Mm,
of your own kind of joy and nurturance and so forth. And that can be bloody hard to do when you're caring for kids, young kids. And that's a, very challenging time of life, I think.
mm,
Um, so yeah.
yeah. Wow. Well, we've talked about a lot of things.
Hmm. Really?
I'm conscious we've kind of reached our hour,
Hmm.
and I'm not going to like say that's it, see you later. Um, but I will start to bring things to a close.
Yeah.
And I'd like to circle back round to something we've talked about already, which is human design, because
Mhm.
you've just recently started a Substack.
Hmm.
What do you call it? An account? What is
Yeah.
it?
The Substack
Substack thing?
thing. Yeah. Started account.
And
No, actually.
you're starting to talk about human design and help other people to begin to understand it.
Mm.
So we want to direct people there, and they can do that by going um, through the guest directory, and all of your links to Substack and Instagram are there.
Yeah.
Do you have a vision or a picture of how human design is going to unfold for you, and how you'd like to use it to support
Mm.
others?
Not a clear vision. I guess I've never, often when people go into human design and want to make some sort of a living out of it or a business out of it, it's around kind of um, readings,
Mm,
or sometimes courses, online courses. And one-on-one readings hasn't really floated my boat
mm,
particularly. So it's kind of been, okay, well, what might it look like? But there's the idea of taking something that's so complex and that is often, there's so much jargon, so many words that we use, and it's challenging because you need kind of the key words that are understood across everybody who's into human design. To me it's a little bit like diagnosing in mental health. Like you need a diagnosis because that means that we can communicate relatively clearly with each other about certain things, and you can do research because you all have a fairly kind of agreed upon understanding of what these things are. But also a mental health diagnosis is like it can be so unhelpful, and how can you sort of define this particular human experience, according
mm,
to this set of rules, or so forth. So I get with human design that there needs to be this common language, but I think it is also it doesn't really land well for people. And while I was doing some of this writing, I was, some of these key terms, I'm like, what does that actually mean? How do you kind of, when we talk about a focused and penetrating aura for a projector, what's that experience? Or a sampling aura for a reflector. So I guess what I'm sort of churning with over at the moment is, how do you hang on to some of that language, but actually communicate around it in a way that is more easily engaged with by others, in a way that then makes it helpful for how they live. So that's kind of what I'm exploring with the Substack. It's just kind of a means for me it's a discipline really, to think through, okay, how would I articulate this? And then I think probably from that, I would imagine sort of some workshops, I think, and something like what you're involved in, where there's a group of people who come together on a regular basis and have a chat about, okay, well, this is kind of what's going on for me at the moment. And, isn't that interesting? And this is how that shows up. And I think being part of that, more of a collaborative thing, or being part of a dialogue about it, rather than sort of a didactic, this is, what human design says, you are. And
yeah, I feel like there's kind of like I mean, I don't even know whether I'm making this up or not, but like there could be a division because people go, well, what's your type? What's your strategy? And like it's all very, and like I've heard it compared to Myers-Briggs, for example. So, how can I use this in teams or working environments, where am I best suited, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the other direction, which is much more about your personal translation, the lens that you see those gates through, how you feel it and how you experience it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they
And yeah, I think it can be really helpful in kind of helping you unpack what is it that I've taken on by my conditioning, by my, social context and what have you, and what is true for me. I think that's, one of the, because, this whole idea of differentiation, of being this unique being, and that's special, that I think is really valuable. And because you're just so pressured these days to look a certain way or to think a certain way, or so I think it does kind of open that up and allow you to explore, okay, well, what does it look like for me in my individuality, and how can I deepen that or explore that further, or and then I think too, the other really big thing for me with human design is just the relationships, that how it informs your understanding of other people, and how it eases those relationships when you have an understanding of kind of where they're coming from, or
totally and more acceptance.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Like, rather for you, probably having generators and manifesting generators around could easily be like, oh my God, I wish they'd just shut up, slow down. Like, but then you see it, like when we're at the Human Design Conference, they've got their lanyard and it tells you, and you go, oh, that's why they're like that. Oh, my gate there doesn't match with that. Or the reason I get on with this person is because we've got this channel. It's definitely, and with your kids as well. Well, your kids are grown, but for for younger people, if you can understand why they're behaving in a certain way, if they're
absolutely. I think that is so invaluable, that perspective on your children. I'm really sorry I missed out on that, but got
grandchildren.
I got to manifest a
Have you?
grandchild. So, I'm really glad I'm in her life.
Wow, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Don't hold her back.
No. It's really interesting to think about auras too with the little ones.
Okay.
You can just kind of like can see that sort of closed and repelling aura. And then I've got a generator who's just the most gorgeous, open, embracing, so it's interesting.
Cool. One last thing. Just one question. Just meaning. Just in a sentence. How important is it to me, like for you to have meaning? Like, you came from a church background, you've explored, Tantra. You're exploring Tantra, meditation, tarot, human design. How important is meaning to you?
I my first response to that is is I think understanding kind of is more important to me. And this, I don't
Is
know.
that
And when you
making sense of when you say understanding?
yeah, it's kind of like, and I think that's going to change. Like, I don't think there is one meaning to be had for
Mm.
me. I think maybe there is for some people, but for me, um, I think that's going to shift. I think there'll always be some things that remain firm, like relationships, the importance of relationships. I think that probably is my core. If I was to say what is the meaning of life, I think it would be it's that sort of dance between your own kind
Yeah.
of joy and the life that you will uniquely live, but it's in community, it's for each other, and and being more of yourself so that you can contribute out of that to others, whether that's in an intimate relationship or in a community. That's yeah. So how that kind of manifests, is like probably infinity options there, but I guess yeah, when it comes down to it, that's the nub for me. Yeah. And so kind of being open to and understanding all the different ways perhaps that can be true,
Mm.
um is yeah, it's important. It's what I do.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Carolyn. I'm going to release you from my clutches.
Well, that's been fun.
Yeah, it's been great. And we're going to direct people to the guest directory so that they can start following you on Substack and
Mhm.
reading all about human design and chickens.
Yeah, yeah. A little
Country
bit.
life, little bit
Yeah.
of country life. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Great. Thanks, Nadine.